So numb that I can barely speak. This pain keeps water in the sea. If I weren't so desperate to be free, I'd keep my distance, babe. The more that I know about you, the more that I want you, baby. They say that good love will yield the best from me. I know it to be true. This moment won't last forever. No remedies whatsoever. These feelings we
The strange news in brief. I'm Guy Ticker. Dateline Venezuela, the first UFO photo of 2023. Journalist Hector Escalante, known for his chronicles of UFO sightings in Venezuela, shared a photo of what would be the first unidentified flying object seen in his country in 2023. The image was supposedly taken in San Antonio de los Altos, Miranda State. In his Instagram profile, the communicator noted that the photo was taken by a man called Ricardo Monzon on January 7th in the Miranda region. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, the home of Night Dreams Talk Radio, with Gary Anderson, syndicated worldwide. Paranormal Talk Radio, like you remember.
Well, boy, February is going by so fast. I hope everybody's, had a great week so far. Well, tomorrow I'm taking off, but then Friday we got a very, very special guest. JC, who is our guest on Friday?
Well, Friday we have Rick Prado coming on, former CIA. He's going to be talking about his many, many years, about his book, his memoirs, through all his encounters and things he's seen and done.
Well, being a spy could be rather interesting. Well, we'll find out a lot what it takes to be a spy and the CIA this Friday. Well, also, a lot of things in the news since I've been off for a few days. You know, the Terminator movies, they're going to come out with a new one. But besides that, you remember the T-1000 robot, JC?
I do. Very vicious.
Well, now scientists have created a liquid metal that can ooze in between bars and then reform itself.
Oh, my goodness. That is a red flag if I've ever heard one, Gary.
Could you imagine something like that being real?
No, that's what I mean. That's scary in itself. The applications that can do is mind-boggling.
Well, you know, climate change is that Earth is slowly warming up. Well, scientists said, we got a cure for that. Why don't we just fire a major bomb off on the moon? The cloud dust will come into our atmosphere and cool the Earth.
Yeah, that doesn't even make any sense at all. But yeah, there is some going on with climate change. I mean, it's going to be 65 here tomorrow, and it should be like 10 to 10 below.
I don't know. But, you know, some scientists say we're not going into climate change. Some we are. I don't know. But I can tell you one thing. It's really messed up out there. Well, you know, over Salt Lake City, they spotted a triangular UFO.
Yeah, they did. I've seen that. That's it was pretty intriguing, I must say.
Yeah. Do you believe in UFOs, JC?
I do believe in. I've seen one.
Yeah, but what were you drinking when you saw it?
Maybe I wasn't drinking enough.
I don't know. Maybe you should have. Maybe you lay off that Mountain Dew. I told you that's what they embalm people with. Anyway, Malcolm Robinson, you know, out of the UK, says that aliens and abductions, that these aliens that are coming to the Earth are evil. They want to take over the Earth. They want to get rid of humans.
You know, I can only go through our history, and I know it's probably completely different aliens, but usually when a superior race, beings, or whatever comes, they usually eventually take over the other ones.
Well, isn't that true? I mean, look at us. We came in here, right? We settled on our continent, and we took it over. We took it away from the Indians.
But we did. Central America, South America. Yes, you're correct.
Well, you know, for years I was joking with my wife, and she actually believed it. Well, she said she did anyway. And my kids, I said, you know, Linda, if you drove the car backwards, you can actually go back in time. So every minute you drive backwards, it reverses time. She actually believed that. I had her at one point walking backwards in the stores, walking backwards, coming into the house. I had my kids doing it too. They said, well, I won't say the word they said to me, but I had them all convinced if you walk backwards, you could go back in time. Well, scientists said, you know, the Earth rotates, and so it's rotating one direction. But our solar system, as far as we know, doesn't rotate. But if we could stop the Earth if we could stop the rotation of the Earth and reverse the rotation, then we could go back in time. Now, I found two things wrong with that approach. One is I'm almost at the age where I have to be in dependent diapers. Now, if we reverse and go back in time, what happens if I go back to the other stage where I'm still in diapers? What have I accomplished?
It sounds like you're going full circle here, Mr. Gary.
Well, I don't know if that's a good idea to go back. Would you want to go back? If I could go back 30 years, I would.
Well, what if he was like that one movie where the guy went, he was born young or born old, went backwards?
Yeah, but the problem if you go backwards, then all your loved ones are gone. Remember the TV show and the movie Highlander?
Oh, yeah.
Where you could live forever? I mean, think about that. You marry a beautiful woman, right? And you're not aging, and she is. And at a certain point, you're going to go, I'm sorry, I'm going to go out and get a cup of coffee down at the cafe. And then you just take off. I mean, then you have to go through the romance after romance, relationship after relationship forever. I don't think that'd be a good idea.
Right. That's what the old vampires got to go through, too. It's a heck of a scenario.
Well, guess what? If you invested in a lot of eggs and figured you're going to clean up the market, guess what? I got the last laugh. The egg market has collapsed.
Oh, no.
It hasn't collapsed. It has gone. Egg prices have dropped down to like $3 and something that doesn't warrant at. I'm reading on CNBC that the whole market in the United States has just crashed today.
I tell you, they play more games with different things. So now they're not selling dozen eggs behind the building somewhere.
No, or down the street. You saw that video I posted, didn't you?
I did,
yeah. It's like toilet paper, right? When there was that big shortage, right? There was a guy not more than a mile from me in a van. Hey, toilet paper, $5 a roll.
Yeah, now he's probably sleeping in a van down by the river. But yeah, at one time he was rolling in it.
Well, literally. You could be too.
Yeah.
The problem is, again, there was that lady we talked about recently who was recycling her toilet paper. Could you imagine? That is disgusting.
First of all, it's got to start out like sandpaper. I mean, it's paper. That's mind-boggling.
Well, have you seen the trail cam of Bigfoot? It was photographed in Washington State. Have you seen that, JC?
I don't know if that was the one I seen, but I've seen a few of them in the last few days, yeah.
Well, this one was off a trail cam, and it was off of Washington State. And it's got people puzzled that maybe, they actually captured a Bigfoot.
I'm going to go check that one out again, but I've seen so many in the last few days. But you know what? Usually if the arms aren't down to their knees, it's a guy in a suit. It just is.
Well, how do you know that for sure? Are you going to go up to one and look for the zipper?
No.
Are you going to kick him in the butt and say, hey, get out of that suit?
No. Do you remember a couple of years ago in my area, there was that guy that seen the Bigfoot like 4 or 5 times throughout the day and filmed it all in one area? That was the one I think you spotted the zipper. Yeah,
well, I'll be honest with you. That one park by you where you live, I mean, a lot of people made a lot of phony videos of Bigfoot out of it. I'll tell you that. They've been everywhere.
That's the one I was talking about. Yeah, that was. But what's the odds of filming the same Bigfoot over a 5-hour period 4 or 5 times? It's no.
Well, Lake Tahoe has a massive creature like the Loch Ness Monster. A boat captain actually just saw one. Again, it's been going on since the 80s that people are claiming that they're seeing like a monster like the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, I seen that. I tell you, it seems like all these old big lakes got some kind of legend or a Nessie of some sort in them anymore.
Oh, yeah. Well, how is the weather at your place, JC? What's the temperature like today?
Today was like 50 degrees. Tomorrow's going to be 65. This is the time of year, Gary, when it's 10 for a high and about 10 below for about a 2-week period. This weather is weird.
I know. Isn't it kind of weird? We just had a part of a cedar tree come down yesterday. Again, we had a major windstorm swept in for a couple hours and then it went out. And I tell you, one of these days I'm going to be looking at, raccoons running through my house when one of those trees, fall in.
Oh, yeah, that wind. Matter of fact, we got wind advisory up to 50, 60 miles an hour for the next 12 hours or so here.
Well, scientists now have come up with a diet supplement that can actually, well, fix your broken heart. You know, if you have arteries and stuff, it's kind of shriveled up in your heart, and you have heart muscles, it's supposed to regenerate it.
Oh my goodness, well, that sounds like a heck of a breakthrough right there. Like, seriously.
Well, it does, but then who knows? Maybe it causes cancer on the other end. So, you know, it's funny. A lot of the stuff that they're discovering, you know, like medicine, it does one thing, it causes massive weight loss. You know, all this weird stuff that's going on. You know, it tells us our technology is really advancing. Well, a Canadian teen wins $48 million in the lotto on the very first try.
I'll tell you what, that's a very well invested $2 or $3 right there.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that's a lot of money. Of course, that's Canadian money, but that's still a lot.
That is a lot. I guarantee every relative that he never knew he had, he now knows them.
Well, a YouTuber spent a week living with a tribe that exhumes their dead, and he wanted to see what it was really like. And he said it was really something he wanted to tackle, his discomfort in being dead and death in general. And he was really disturbed to see these people bringing up their loved ones that's buried every year. They dig them up, they give them a bath, give them all new clothes, and, you know, replace their cigarettes and glasses and whatever. You know, I don't know. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
That is weird. That sounds like that couple tribes there in Southeast Asia. They do that same scenario. They even build them a little house.
Yeah. Well, when I die, I told my wife, you better not have any money in my pockets. I might try to figure out where to spend it at. And I know if I go where I think I'm going to meet Adolf Hitler.
We're gonna write you a check and put a check in.
Oh, you're gonna put a check in there? That's one way, yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure you put my cell phone in there too. You never know.
Right, that's right. Very true. Listen, nothing worse being buried alive, especially when you've already been filled with formaldehyde.
Well, you know, off the Oregon coast, there's a drain pipe on the Pacific Ocean. What it is a massive cave system. So what happens is, as the tide goes in and out of the ocean, it creates a major whirlpool. And it's rather interesting. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's all over the news. And it's really weird. You see the water of the ocean just opening up and going down.
I've seen that. That's been there for years. I've seen that years ago, too.
It's been there probably a good couple million years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite the vision, let me tell you, for sure.
The scientists, well, you know, they figure they're going to bring back the all kinds of creatures that have been extinct. The what do you call it? The woolly mammoth. They're planning to bring that back. They said within the next 2 years. And now a bird that's been extinct since the 17th century. They said it's just a matter of a year or so, and they'll be able to bring that one back.
Yeah, I think that's the dodo bird, maybe. But listen, to me, it's Jurassic Park all over. When are they going to stop? When are you going to draw the line when something's so big it takes over and starts, eating you? I mean, really?
Well, they found a large meteorite. It was unearthed in Antarctica. Yeah, it's been locked there for thousands of years, and it can give us maybe secrets of the universe.
I'll tell you, that's the place to look for meteorites. That's where that one from Mars was found. Good spot.
Yeah. Well, a man, this guy should be in jail. He should be in jail. But a man who fathered 102 children, where were you at? And has 578 grandchildren says, enough is enough.
Yeah. He should. When do you draw the line? He should drew that line a long time ago.
I wonder how many wives he has and girlfriends. 102 kids.
How about the child support?
Well,
Wow.
This is in Africa. What are they going to get? Spices?
I don't know, but wow.
102. 102. If that happened in the United States, he would be in jail no matter what. Now, financially, they say they can't put you in jail, but when it comes to child support, they could. Could you imagine 102 women coming up and saying, this guy, JC, made me pregnant and I had his kid? 102 of them, not 20 or 30. I mean, this guy breaks the record of 102 children. He is doing something to increase the population.
Yeah, he's creating a little.
I wonder what he
Imagine
eats
if
and
you had to pay
drinks.
$100 a head for a child per month. Wow.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't know how anybody could even have that much time to spend in bed to do that.
Exactly. He's very, very agile, I guess. Wow.
I don't know. He has more time than I have. 102. I don't know. They found a horrifying monster fish with teeth and armor plating. And I'll tell you what, I got to look at this picture. If I caught that fish, or if it caught me, it would be, well, curtains.
I've seen that fish. It looks like it could bite right through your aluminum boat.
How about fiberglass?
Oh, easily.
Okay. Well, since fiberglass, well, why not steel? Anyway, scientists have received a radio signal from deep in space, and they have received 20 of them, or 25 of them here recently. They're all different.
Yeah. Listen, that's that there. I don't know. Should we answer them? Obviously, they might have heard us calling them.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe we should just send them more reruns of I Love Lucy.
or the Nuremberg rallies. They really think we're something.
Well, they probably do. They still think we're in, let's face it. What was really popular in the 50s and early 60s? Westerns, right?
Yep.
Okay, that's what they're going to think we are. We're cowboys and Indians. Anyway, we'll be back with our guest, David Livingston. He was on my friend's show, Art Bell, and we're going to talk about commercial space. And do you think one of these days there are going to be hotels and motels in space? Wouldn't that be kind of interesting? So stay tuned. You're listening to me, Gary, on Night Dreams Talk Radio. If you haven't given us a thumbs up on chat and on YouTube, please do. We'll be right back.
Pyramids and the Great Floods is a must-get, must-read, fascinating new book by John Shaughnessy. Discover the purpose of the global pyramids and how an advanced Type 3 society used them to control global floods and reduce the impact of instant ice ages. In 1997, a geologist discovered 30 times the Earth's surface oceans located below the upper mantle, the source of Noah's floodwaters. While cataclysm researchers have been looking to the heavens for the doomsday catalyst, it turns out that all the while, it's been right under our very feet. Hell really is down below. Pyramids and the Great Floods describes in full detail how ancient past societies used the global pyramids to lower the damage of floods. You will be amazed. Pyramids and the Great Floods by John Shaughnessy. Get it now on Amazon in paperback and on Amazon Kindle. The strange news in brief. I'm Guy Ticker. Astronomers find rare star system that will trigger a kilonova. The universe has no shortage of oddities, and researchers at the National Science Foundation's Noir Lab have observed another one in the form of a particular binary star system. The system, called CPD-292176, will eventually trigger a kilonova, a celestial event in which two neutron stars collide in a massive explosion that forms heavy elements, including gold and platinum. I'm Guy Ticker. The strange news is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. Beaming to you like a whirlwind. In syndication and on all the apps worldwide. You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network.
Hi, this is Val Von Torn of Metatron Power and Light. You're listening to Gary Anderson and Night Dreams Talk Radio.
Well, thank you, Val, from Metatron Power and Light. I hope you had a good day, Val. I am having a terrific day. Well, JC, what can you tell the listeners about our guest tonight?
Well, our guest tonight is David Livingston. Now, he is a leading authority on space commerce, space tourism, exploration, science, economics, and development. And he had appeared on Art Bell's show many, many times, and he is the host of The Space Show.
Well, David, how are you doing?
I am doing fine. Thank you for inviting me to your show.
Well, I'm glad I have you there. I remember many nights with my dear friend Art Show. I would be listening, and occasionally I'd hear you on, and I tell you, it was interesting.
My kids grew up listening to Art Bell and myself, and we had a lot of fun and enjoyed it. And I role modeled Art's talk hosting methodology, if one can call it that, for what I do on the space show. I actually thought he was the best talk host I'd ever heard, and he was an inspiration to me. So I'm sorry that era is over with.
I was too, just a matter of days before he passed on. I had a conversation with him, and he was kind of depressed. He kept saying, well, at that time, he goes, I'm 72. And I go, well, what's wrong with being 72? And he goes, well, I don't have much time left. And and then, that was like maybe on a Thursday. And then over the weekend, I got the news that he passed on. And I tell you, it was a really hit because, there's a lot of people out there trying to be Art Bell. I guess I do too, and I can't help it. But you know what? He was the godfather of, paranormal talk radio.
But not just that, the way he respected and treated guests, even those that he disagreed with, he was always civil, polite. He didn't get in fights with them, and he could talk to the greatest PhD minds on the planet, and he could talk to the lowest level guy or gal that called. And he was versatile and respectful, and he knew how to ask interesting questions. And I think his retirement was sort of a period of where he started going downhill a little bit. Maybe he retired too soon, but that's not for me to say.
Yeah, a lot of things in people's lives. Well, David, what got you into space? Thinking about space. How old were you when you started getting interested in, what's out there and not on here?
Well, like so many people, childhood, obviously. And I love the science fiction stuff. I was born in 46, so I love the early 50s science fiction, the flying saucer movies, the special effects. Really wanted to meet aliens. I was hoping they were around, wanted to ride on flying saucers. But I guess I got a Cub Scout telescope when I was about 5 years old or 6 years old. And I could go out in my backyard. I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I could see craters on the moon with that little thing. And I could see the rings of Saturn, and I was hooked. And then in junior high and high school, I discovered Sky and Telescope, and they had glow-in-the-dark stars that you could put on your ceiling above your bed for kids.
Now, did your parents...
I put a solar system on my bed.
Did your parents get upset with you?
All sorts of things like that.
David, did your parents?
No,
yeah,
never.
My parents got mad because they said, we just painted your ceiling. Why did you stick all those, And I said, it's cool. And I got that black light, and they just really glowed at night.
No, and I got a telescope and a decent Unitron. I don't think they're made anymore, but you can buy them on eBay. Refractor telescope, 125 power. Manual tracking. There were no computers back in those days, but that was just like the gift of God. And Tulsa back then did have clear skies. It wasn't full of light pollution, so we could view and could see things and could see Mars and stuff like that. And then I shared that interest and brought my kids up in that interest, and we did telescope parties in California when they were young with sidewalk astronomers. There's organizations like that all over the country. And when Mars was particularly close about 25 or 30 years ago, we went almost every night viewing them and paid a lot of attention. And Art Bell focused on all that stuff. I mean, he wasn't just a paranormal. He did real science. And my kids listened to Art Bell. I had one of those tape recorders that could record at a quarter speed.
Uh-huh.
So I could record Art Bell, and then we could play it. And sometimes we played it while they were in the car or during breakfast or different times. So they heard a lot of the Art Bell shows, and they got a lot of science as well as paranormal, as well as a lot of fun. We were on a trip one time, Gary, and the Phoenix Light story came up with Art Bell. and they were glued to the radio for several days for Phoenix Lights.
Oh, yeah. That's what I really miss. There's not been a show that has captured the flavor of what Art did. I'm going to go back because I'm 72. You're a couple years older than me, I take it. And
yeah, I'm 70. I'm 76. Yeah.
Yeah, you're still young. We're almost at the age of getting diapers again. You know that.
No. Not talk about that.
Okay.
I guess if I can be so liberal, if you're a guy and you're getting up in years and they say you got to lose your prostate, you are going to be on diapers. So just
I don't know.
accept the reality of life.
My wife is one of the compulsive buyers. She buys everything. And one day back a year ago, she came home with a box of, well, it depends, diapers. And I said, where do you got that for? She goes, well, wait, just for another, down the road. For you? No, they're your size. Okay, well, I guess that's all you think of me. But when I was a kid.
She's just planning ahead.
Well, she saves money that way. But when I was like about 8, 9 years old, I got obsessed with my father. We'd watch, those old B movies, where they build these, the earth is going to end, or they're going to go out to, Venus, or they're going to go to the moon, and they build these rockets, right? And you sit there and you look at the rocket, right? And you see all these rivets holding it together. And you see the control room with all these heavy, machinery and big old analog, meters. And you wonder, how would it ever got off the ground? But when you're a kid, you don't think about that things. You get really intrigued. So the last couple of weeks, I'll be honest with you, I got hooked on watching B movies. What am I doing? I'm making up for every B movie of going to Mars, going to Venus, going to the moon that was ever made in the 50s. And I'll tell you what, it's rather interesting.
Yeah, it is. And most of them you can watch on YouTube for free.
That's what I'm doing. But you gave it away. You gave it away.
That's how to do it. And they're really entertaining. Look, I know a lot of guys my age and younger that know about that. First of all, you have to know about those movies, and but they still go back and watch some of them. And some of the stuff that Harry Hallerhausen, or I got his name wrong, but I'm close, for special effects was the best ever. Earth versus the Flying Saucers. Are you kidding? That's great stuff. So I recommend it. If you don't know what to watch on TV, sometimes go Google it for YouTube and see what you can turn up with, and you'll have a good evening.
The Day the Earth Stood Still is probably one of my favorites.
The original.
Yeah,
yes,
the original.
I agree with
the
you.
original. Yeah. Well, again, so you had with your kids. I tried that. I lived in Tacoma, and going back about 25 years ago, somehow my wife decided to buy the kids a telescope. And we'd be out there about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of winter, freezing. And I'll tell you, with so much light pollution, you really couldn't see anything.
That is a problem. I used to take my kids to a dude ranch in Arizona, and they had clear skies in the western part of Tucson. And the University of Arizona Astronomers Club would come out there and have a whole array of telescopes in the desert. And, we got to look through different kinds of telescopes, and they showed us different things. And, it was a lot of fun, and no light pollution. Those skies were just amazing. But then one year when I was young, I took off and I went on a cattle drive in Montana, and then I really saw clear skies. So, that made Tucson look like light pollution. So they're out there. You can find clear skies still, but, the cities and the lights are taking over. I'm in the Las Vegas area now, and all I see is the glare from the Strip. So it's
okay. You mentioned you remember Abbott Costello? They had a routine. You said one word, or maybe it was the Three Stooges. I can't remember. And then they would go after you. You mentioned Las Vegas, and anytime I hear the word Las Vegas, I think about this one guy who has a video. I'm not mentioning his name. He has a video camera. He has a huge following on YouTube, and I swear to God, David, every weekend he goes out and he captures these UFOs going around the hills of Las Vegas. Have you ever heard of the person? Don't mention names if you have.
No, and I live around the western hills of Las Vegas, and I've never seen a UFO. So I don't know what he's capturing, but
I know
not
what he's capturing.
UFOs.
You know what he's capturing?
What's he capturing?
Well,
What?
I had him on the show, and I really treated him, really nice. And afterwards, I called up the control tower at the International Airport in Las Vegas. I said, hey, if there's UFOs flying around the hilltops around, Las Vegas, what would they do? Well, we would shut it down. Well, can you refer me to any government agency? They connected me, gave me the number for an Air Force person I talked to. And the guy started laughing. He goes, there's no UFOs flying around Las Vegas, period. We would know about it. But here's the number for the atomic, whatever, So I called up that government agency and talked to a real nice lady scientist. And she said, look, back in the 50s and 60s, we detonated a lot of nuclear weapons, around Area 51 and all that stuff. And what they're doing...
Like Nellis Air Force Base,
Yeah, and what they're doing is checking for radiation migrating through, like, water, through all this stuff. So what they do is periodically they go around the hills around Las Vegas with a helicopter checking for radiation. And, I started looking at these guys' videos. And by the way, because of Vietnam, I've been in a lot of helicopters. And, after I analyzed his video, it was definitely a helicopter. And that's what but people believe anything. They want to believe. They really want to believe, David, that we're being visited by UFOs.
Well, here's a fun story for you. There are helicopters every night over the Western Valley of Las Vegas. I mean, every single damn night. And because of these computer groups for neighborhoods called Next Door or the Neighborhood, sometimes ring doorbells depending on how they're aiming their camera. People say, there's a helicopter flying above, and they'll give an address or they'll give a region. Does anyone know what it is? What's the police action? And every night there's 5 to 10 of these helicopter announcements over the western part of Las Vegas, and they're not all police helicopters or state police. I assume they're, because Nellis Air Force Base is here, and they also have a lot of training, that they're military aircraft that are practicing mountain flying and stuff at nighttime. But maybe that's what they're doing, what you said, because the Atomic Energy Museum is here, and they have the base there where you can visit at certain times, where they were working on the nuclear blast and the nuclear propulsion for space, which they canceled, which all of my space friends, and which we talk a lot about on the space show, are really upset about, although it looks like they're gearing up to try for nuclear propulsion all over again between DARPA and NASA.
Well,
so there's still nuclear activity around the area. Some of it you can tour. The museum is great. If you can get to the test site and actually see the test site and go into parts of it that are okay, that's worth it too. So you may be right. I don't have that experience, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Oh, yeah. And, again, I'm glad that they, we can't, you go back to the Chinese, right, when they invented the skyrocket. We're still doing the same thing. We're taking some type of liquid or a powdered fuel, put it in, and then we're sending up something. Okay, we haven't really advanced that far to go to really out and do and become a level 1 or level 2 civilization. I think atomic is the only other way at this point till we can discover something else. It's going to get us off world to explore, like things that happen like in Star Trek and all that stuff.
Well, nuclear propulsion would initially be fission,
right?
And the reactors would be activated in space, not here on Earth. So you have an engineering challenge to make them safe for launch in case the rocket were to blow up. But that's an engineering challenge that can be addressed with today's technology. And then the propulsion is activated outside of Earth's atmosphere. So that's a whole different story. Fusion offers a lot of promise. And then there are some really far out kind of like thruster and other kinds of propulsion that people dream of. There are even physics plans for warp drives, although the guy who created that design years ago created it as a college project and then created it as a joke. And I've had him on the show, but more and more physicists, especially that belong to alternative groups that have their own peer review system rather than the traditional academic peer review system, have been writing papers on how to create warp drive. And maybe you've talked to some of these people, I don't know. The problem with doing that is you need something called negative energy, and it doesn't exist. Or if it does exist, we don't know how to create it or harness it, use it, or anything like that. But who knows where we'll be in 100 years? So
well, and
all bets are off for the future.
Even 25 years, because you look at from the Wright brothers to the 747 to the the Concorde. Look how far, and then going to the moon, how far we advanced in a short space of time. So I don't even give it more
Absolutely.
than, I give it maybe 20, 25 years, or next week. You never know. Somebody could come out with something. I had one guy I've been talking to that I'm going to give over to JC in the next few days. He claims that we can take atomic energy, mix it with water, and create propulsion that way to get spacecraft off of Earth. And I don't buy that one.
Yeah, I'd like to know how he plans to do that.
Well, what's he going to do when he runs out of
energy,
water?
What does he mean by atomic energy? I guess that would be my first question.
Well, I'm not a scientist, so he's way over my head. But yet again, maybe he's not. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. So right now for atomic energy, we're mostly working with fission, and that's why we have radiation and fuel problems with discharged and old fuel rods and fallout and stuff like that. Fusion is clean and very different, and we're probably maybe still 20 plus years away from commercial fusion. Hopefully not any longer than that, maybe a little shorter. So I'd have to know what he is defining as atomic energy, because if you're going to mix fission with water, I don't know how he's doing that.
I don't either.
Fission boils water. See, that's the energy heats up, and there are different ways to do this. And what it really does is it boils water. And as you boil water, then you have thrust that comes out the rear end of the rocket, or steam, or whatever you want to call it. And it can do it at such high temperatures and such high power that you have propulsion. But it's a fancy water boiling rig.
Yeah,
in space, you have a lot of heat that this gives off, so you have to radiate the heat out in space, which is challenging for nuclear propulsion. But I don't know. I'm not a scientist either. Maybe he has a little secret twist there that he thinks will work. But I'd love to see his idea.
Oh yeah, and again, too, I think it was you on my friend's art show. You talked about hotels, up in space, didn't you? Or am I mixing you with somebody else?
I have talked about them. Art used to have, back in the day with Art, the talk about space tourism was getting underway.
Mm-hmm.
And on the one hand, a lot of people in the industry, but people in the general public, had what was called the giggle factor. And on the other hand, there were people within the industry who knew it was plausible, but didn't really have any great way of doing it. So there was another guy who, his name is Gene Meyer, who was on a lot with Art Bell, and he had a program back in the day called Space Islands. And he wanted to create space tourism by taking the space shuttle external tanks. And these are these really big, huge, and they were painted orange. If you can visualize them, they're really, really big, and they're really big inside. And he wanted to leave them in orbit and renovate them in orbit, somehow clean them, renovate them in orbit, even though robotics at the time was pretty primitive, and turn them into hotels, because they were so huge and their diameters were so big. Well, NASA would never hear of it and would never make their external tanks available for any commercial, let alone any military need that we know of. Now, what they may have done secretly with the military, I don't know. So the external tanks mostly came plunging back to Earth. They went into the drink, and that was the end of them, okay? So space tourism and hotels were talked about on Art Show by myself from time to time, Gene, and a couple of other people, and there was an advocacy movement to get NASA to free up these external tanks rather than wasting them and crashing them back into the ocean, and let's give it a go for space tourism. But, that never happened. And so now we're on the verge of suborbital tourism, but it really hasn't taken off commercially yet. And orbital tourism, the great hope for that is SpaceX and what they're up to, especially if they get Starship flying, their big, huge, humongous rocket made of stainless steel out of Boca Chica, Texas. And we'll see if it happens. As for hotels in space, we don't have orbital construction. I mean, we have little bits of it. We can make a 3D printer in space, and we can use that to make parts in space. But we could not do real orbital construction in space yet. There are companies attempting to do that by experimenting with metals and products on Earth that they would use in space and trying to perfect construction methodology that would also work in a zero or microgravity environment and zero temperature in a vacuum in space. But I think it's all plausible, but it's probably on a longer timeline than most people would like.
Well, it's not going to be in my lifetime, I can tell you that. But, and you think about it, too, I was watching a video that one of these companies that are making, inflatable rooms to attach to the space station to give it more rooms. One of them exploded. And then you think about it, when you're out in space, I don't know if I want to check in a hotel or a motel in space and maybe have some debris go through it and you're vaporized. Or
Well, people climb Mount Everest, don't they? They go down in the ocean in metal tanks, metal cages to go play with and take pictures of great white sharks that are hungry. They race cars at 180 miles an hour, and you see those accidents, and they're flipping 50 and 60 feet in the air, head over head. Sometimes they walk away from it, and sometimes they don't. So people are different, and there's a lot of people that will take the adventure of going into space.
Well, if Evel Knievel or his son was still alive, they would, and if they were offered, he died on his rocket ship going through the one.
Right.
Yeah. Some people don't have the fear of death like most people have. And I'll be honest with you, to be an astronaut or be up in the space station, you must be one of those type of people, because I tell you, I like my 2 feet on the ground. Just thinking about going into space and what you can run into. That's the thing. Honestly, David, I'm confused here. They want to get us on Mars. They want to create a base on Mars, a private industry doing it. What I don't understand is what is going on with NASA. Why are they falling so far behind commercial enterprises?
Well, I think you don't have to look any further than how government does business and projects versus private industry, not just related to space. So usually the pricing and the costing is greatly overinflated. It always takes longer for government kind of R&D. Sometimes they're totally over-engineered. Look at some of the fighter planes and the ships. They're so expensive we can't even afford to buy them. And then if we do buy them, we can't afford to maintain them. So, and government contractors are building. I mean, Lockheed is a commercial contractor. It's a commercial company. You can go out and buy stock in it, or Boeing, but they're following the mandates of the Department of Defense or the government or whatever, and compare and contrast that with the way, say, SpaceX works or Tesla works, or even a big bloated corporation like Ford works, because they don't have the freedom of movement like, say, a SpaceX has. So I just think it's a big difference in the way government can do certain things versus private industry. And then in addition, but a lot of what government does so good at is R&D, because there's not always a profit incentive with R&D, and commercial businesses need to make a profit. That's what makes them commercial. So they're not going to pursue drugs and certain things with a very high risk of failure because they can't make any money on it. So that's made to order for a government that will do something for the national good or for the betterment of humanity or for something like that. But it costs more, it takes longer to do it, but they're the ones who do that. And then typically at some point they turn that over to commercial companies to exploit it. So it's a great system when it works, and it has worked really well in the past. And I think it's got some challenges right now, but I'm hoping it's a system that will prevail, because it's also a wealth building system for people all over the world, not just in America and not just for the upper echelon. It's a wealth building system for people at the bottom as they profit and make money doing what they can do, and they can own houses and buy nice cars and do things that other people can do. And it's a win-win to me, and it's under attack, as you probably know.
It is. How far do you think we are from actually launching a craft to Mars with people on it?
Do you want them to live?
Well, at least to live long.
That's not a dumb question.
No, I want them to live long. Well, they want them to live till at least they get there. But if that's possible, which I don't know.
So if your goal was to launch them and get them to Mars alive, and to be able to walk out of the spaceship and do something useful and have some sheltered place to live so that you don't get cooked in the Martian radiation atmosphere and other elements, I think maybe we could do that. And I don't think they'd have a lot of great prospects for longevity, but I'd say maybe pushing it, and if government regulations didn't stop you for being totally crazy, 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, but
and a lot of that is the life support element of it, just to get them there alive and healthy so they can walk off the spaceship is a really big deal. And then to allow them to live there, say until the next launch window to come back to Earth, which probably be 9 months, maybe 6 months. And then they have to live in a sheltered environment, and they have to have a food supply and a water supply and an oxygen supply. And then you need to have a way to get back if the goal is to bring them back. If you just want them to, it's okay to let them die there and be monuments of explorers. And you got away with that. I'd say maybe you could do that kind of a mission if anybody would do it in 5 to 10 years, and I bet you'd get volunteers to go on it.
Well, don't they already have people lined up that want to do it? I don't know. Just the thought of getting there, the radiation, and all the other things, like you could go through asteroids, you could go through all kinds of things, and be destroyed even before you get to Mars. That's the part that would scare me.
Absolutely, and if you don't plan for the deterioration of your muscles and bones, if you don't counter it, if you don't have some kind of facility to do that. And right now, the only way we have to counter that is extensive exercise protocols.
But that's not working.
Like on the space station, they're working out with special equipment that has gotten up to the space station. So you'd have to have special equipment in space, because you don't ride a bicycle like like a Schwinn or like a stationary bike in your local gym. It's not the same kind of equipment. So it's a big deal. And I know it gets played out as being really fancy and the real aggressive promoter. We can do it. We're ready to go now. You hear all the talk about it. But I don't think we could do it today and get anybody there alive. I don't even know that we have a rocket today that could do it, let alone the life support that could do it. But we're close if you want to take a lot of enormous risk and you're not too worried about killing the people on the way or when they land. If safety starts to enter into it, I'll just tell you this, that Elon Musk made a tweet yesterday or the day before that he saw humanity going to Mars on a 20-year timeline from now.
That's a possible.
So that's what, 2043.
If we're still here by then, too. You got to take that. But here's the other thing. How about the astronauts that's been up in the space station that come back? Okay, they have actually physically shrunk. They have now heart problems. They found that their DNA is kind of migrated a little bit, and they found that their brains have shrunk. That's just being up on the space station. Could you imagine going through all the radiation to go to Mars, going on again? I mean, if we have this problem with somebody who's been on a space station for a short period of time, are they going to be, even if they exercise, honestly, David, are they going to be able to climb out of that spacecraft and do anything?
Well, first of all, it's not every astronaut that has.
No, not every, but a lot of them have.
Some do.
Yeah.
And some do regain it after a while back on Earth. Some of the eye problems and some of the cognitive things become entrenched problems for people, and some of the bone problems like osteoporosis don't get reversed. So if safety is what you want, you need a travel vehicle that is either heavily shielded and has the facilities in it to counter microgravity and radiation, or now we're going back to nuclear power. It gets the hell out of Dodge really fast, gets you to Mars really fast, so that all of these elements can't do you harm or do you as much harm, and you get to Mars and you get into your shielded environment in Mars so that you have a minimum impact of all of what you would have if you tried to do it in a chemical rocket today. And we don't have that nuclear rocket. So we're going to take many, many months to get to Mars, and you're going to have to shield it, and you're going to have to provide facilities to stay healthy, and you're going to have advanced medical care, and you're going to have some way to grow food or to process food and nutrition. There's a whole cottage industry. It's not a cottage industry, it's a real industry growing right now on space agriculture and space farming and nutrition for the day when people will be traveling around in space, being on Mars, being on the moon. Because right now, today, the nutritional and food supplies that we have and capability would be horrible.
Wow.
It would not be self-sufficient for a long-term stay on the moon or even getting to Mars.
Yeah, any word? I mean, the government keeps pushing it back about going on the moon. I know that China is talking about they want to create a base on the moon, so that kind of put the fire back on us. But realistically, do you see us going and creating a base on the moon in the next couple years?
I think we have the capability to do that. So I think it has more to do with the political will of the administration that may be in office at the time, the economy of the country, and whether the people want it. So if inflation is soaring and the economy is for crap and people are having trouble, staying in their homes and buying gas and food, and you're coming into the Great Recession that so many economists are predicting, and then to hear that the government is planning billions of dollars for a moon hab, no matter what the science, what the value, no matter what the Chinese are doing, they'd probably have a total revolt. So I don't think getting to the moon is as much a technological issue as it is a political and national willpower issue, plus economic issue.
Yeah, but David, I look at it, before we even think about going to Mars, spending the money to go to Mars, wouldn't they be better, these organizations, to go on the moon and create a moon base for a while, let people live on the moon for a while? At least if something goes bad, it's a more of a chance to get the person or people back, rather than just going, okay, we're going to Mars. Why don't we go to Venus? I hear there's blonde babes on Venus. We should go there.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I am.
So that's a debate that is still going on in the space community. So I'm of the position that we should go to the moon and learn how to live and work and even play in space before attempting to go to Mars. But there are many people that are very wise and know the engineering. Dr. Zubrin is one, and others, and they don't think we need to do the lunar step, that we can just go to Mars and do on-the-job training. And they have very persuasive arguments. So I think you could go to Mars direct, and you could do this. My hunch is that humans would do better if we learned how to live in a microgravity and toxic environment. So the moon is toxic. The regolith is very, very toxic. And on Mars, the sand is toxic in a different way. But the atmosphere, it does have an atmosphere, so you do have a radiation problem on Mars, and you've got other issues on Mars that you do not have on the moon. But I think the moon would be really useful and very wise training before going to Mars. So if it turns out that the United States falters and we cannot return to the moon and we cannot put a habitat on the moon, I think it'll be a disaster for the United States, for our future, and for the entire Western nations, because China is a totalitarian country, and they'll do whatever the leader tells them to, and to hell with the people. They won't care, and the people won't really have a voice in it.
They don't.
And China wants to go to the moon, and they want to use lunar resources, of which there are lots, to benefit China's economy here on Earth.
Well, China, even the leader of China, the president of China said they want.
They're not.
The president of China said they actually want to claim the moon as part of China.
I think that would be really hard to do, but even with that claim, that they want to benefit and supplement their economy with resources, rare earth minerals and stuff that are on the moon. And they have really great engineers and scientists. We're not the only ones that have good engineers and scientists. They have better schools probably than we do, but that's another story. So they want to bring stuff back, and they want to benefit and grow and make their economy more powerful, and they want to rule the earth through economic means. So what China does on the moon is instrumental to their policy for expansion and power here on Earth. When we talk about going to the moon, we talk about going for the science. We're going to advance science. So commercial space guys and gals and people I know that are frequently on the space show and others say, what the hell? We need to use these resources too to benefit our economy. We're not so rich anymore that we can't supplement our economy, and we're vulnerable to rare earth minerals coming from other powers. Look, we can't even make a pharmacy product, a prescription drug product on our shores anymore. And where do most of the components come from? They come from China. They'll try to make a blood pressure medicine on Earth and see how far, in the United States, and see how far you get. So,
hey, David,
going to the moon for science is fine. Yeah.
We need to take a break, and this is about 3.5 minutes long.
Okay.
And when we come back, I'm going to put a little humor into the show too. I'm going to talk a little bit about, Area 51, supposedly, the crashed UFOs. Bob Lazar claiming we have these UFOs. If that's the case, why do we need rockets? So we're going to be back with David Livingston on Night Dreams Talk Radio. Stay tuned. It's going to be a great show. Check our website out at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com.
Tie you to this track. Come hell or high water, I'll leave you and never look back. Someday you'll come running, somehow rivers calling, you'll see I'll be longing, I'm free. Come hell or high water, I'm gonna make you love me. Against the wall. Maybe I'm reckless, maybe I play the fool. Come hell or high water, baby, I think.
The strange news in brief. I'm Guy Ticker. What did the ancient Egyptian pyramids look like when they were built? When the ancient Egyptian pyramids were originally erected, both in Giza and elsewhere, they didn't look sandy brown, as they often do today. Rather, they were covered in a layer of shiny sedimentary rock. There's evidence that the casing stones began being stripped under Tutankhamun's reign, circa 1336 BC to 1327 BC, and this continued until the 12th century AD. A rather long time. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. There it is, right in the night sky, the mysterious moon. Constance Victoria Briggs, author of The Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries, brings us her new book, The Moon's Galactic History, a look at the moon's extraterrestrial past and its connection to Earth. It follows past and present research about the moon's mysterious history, with a focus on extraterrestrial presence. Briggs examines such questions as, are there moon inhabitants? Are the UFOs seen around the Earth today connected to the moon? Is there a city on the moon? And more. The Moon's Galactic History, a look at the moon's extraterrestrial past and its connection to Earth, can be purchased now on Amazon. Also, check out the author's website, www.constancevictoriabriggs.com. Do you remember how great paranormal talk radio was in the 80s and 90s? Night Dreams Talk Radio brings back to you talk radio like you remember, with your host, Gary Anderson, broadcasting to you live from his secret compound deep in the great Northwest. Now, here's Gary.
And I am back with David Livingston. We're talking about, commercial, space flights, commercial ventures, and all that stuff out in space. But you know what, David? Again, I'm going to go back to people like Bob Lazar, and a lot of people claim that we have all these crash UFOs and they have reverse engineered them. If that's the case, why aren't we using one of those to go to the moon or go to, Mars?
Well, I guess the first thing you have to really want to believe that Bob and what you hear from a lot of other people really do have secret information, and they're leaking it out and they're telling you what's there. So I'm pretty skeptical about all of that. So I don't cover UFOs or the paranormal on the space show, but I do love the topic just personally. And I would love for there to be alien spacecraft. I'd love for there to be extraterrestrial sentient life. I'm sort of frustrated that all we're looking for is molecular life. When we go out onto Mars, cells and stuff like that. I kind of want to find sentient life out there, but that's another story. I don't know. I don't have any intelligence, classification. I had the Bob Lazar flying saucer model when my kids were young, and we built it, and it's great fun. I can say that about it, but whether any of it's true, I don't know. If we had, there used to be a discussion on Art Bell earlier on about secret military missions to the moon. You probably remember that.
Oh, yeah.
And secret bases on the moon and stuff like that. So there are so many amateurs in computer and high quality imaging and camera stuff that you couldn't launch rockets today in secret and go in trajectory and get to the moon. So it's just not happening. Well, it would get called out by people not associated with the government with pretty impeccable pictures and photos of it.
You have these people who claim that there's alien bases on the moon. Let's be honest with you. If you have a decent telescope, a mirror one or a good size one, I mean, there's a guy scientist that goes on TikTok every Friday or Saturday night, and he's showing different parts of the moon and going into craters. If there was an alien basis on the moon, we would see it.
I would think so. It would depend on the resolution. So there's always the question is, with what power telescope or camera could you see the Empire State Building on the moon? And I used to know the answer to that, but I don't know the answer for that this evening. But you need a lot of resolution to see stuff like that. And just because you've got a camera doesn't necessarily mean, or a telescope, that you could see the Empire State Building or a base on the moon. And if you saw it, and if it were camouflage, you might not know what you're looking for, especially an amateur. But I think that's a far stretch.
Yeah.
And I think the idea that we wouldn't be using some aspects of that technology also is pretty compelling that we don't have it.
Well, I would like to see, up in space, you go up to space and as a tourism, like you get in your car or your RV and you go, okay, I'm going to go to well, the moon. I'm going to go to Mars, and you just go, and on the way you stop at McDonald's and get a cup of Java or something. I don't know. Maybe like these movies that we talked about at the beginning.
The Jetsons.
The Jetsons. Yes, but maybe.
Yeah, the Jetsons.
Maybe what me and you watched as young kids, the reality of space. Maybe it'll be a different type of craft by then, but maybe what we've seen in those movies, will be real.
Changing orbital planes in space is very difficult and very costly because of the energy it takes to do that and fuel. So if you were flying around in space and going from one place to another, you want to like the Enterprise, and you're flying around. I mean, their propulsion is make-believe, so they can do whatever they want. But, it still uses fuel from the crystals, the lanthanum crystals.
Yeah, but I get it.
And, they have warp drive and where they can do it. But if you tried to do that even with a nuclear rocket, it would be really, really hard and very costly. And this is why the field of orbital dynamics in engineering and in spaceflight is so crucial, because they have to plan every time they are going to do something or make a change in the orbit or boost the space station to a higher orbit to keep it in orbit, or change something about a shuttle flight takes so much energy and so much propulsion that it's planned to the very last speck of energy. And so these are the laws of physics as we know them, okay? Now, if you ask physicists if there are other laws of physics out there that might govern the universe and space that are different from ours, they'll say no, our laws of physics are universal. And we know that they are because they work for interstellar ships that we now have. We have interstellar spaceships. They work for all of our planetary exploration, our laws of physics. We're not running into something that we can't build and design and engineer for. So if there are new physics, we don't know about it, we don't know what they are, and we haven't encountered it yet. So to do what the Jetsons do and what you just described, it would, in my opinion, and again, I'm not an engineer, but it would take new physics or an enormous amount of energy and propulsion that was pretty affordable or cheap or endless in supply. So I don't know how you get around some of the hurdles of physics. And, you can invent new fuels, you can invent different kinds of propulsion systems, but you are still constrained by the laws of physics of our universe. And until such time as new laws of physics are demonstrated and there's some proof behind them, we're constrained by what you get in a high school and college physics book.
Yeah, but even that has changed.
How do you like that?
When I went to college, it's changed.
Yes, it has changed. Right.
Now you got string theory.
But the the string theory's never been proven, and it's not accepted by everybody. But you still have the three laws of physics, the Newtonian three laws, and the laws of thermodynamics, and they govern what we do in the universe. And this is the problem. There's an awful lot of advanced propulsion ideas. I'm trying to think of the one that the engineer came up with a couple of years ago, and everybody was hot to trot that this was going to be warp drive plus. And then NASA put some scientists to work on it and tried to perfect it. And unfortunately, the type of propulsion slips my mind. But it was defying the laws of thermodynamics. And so people said it can't work, it's not real, because you can't defy the laws of thermodynamics. And in the end, it fizzled out and was nothing. And what they thought was thrust was background noise with the thrusters and what they were trying to do in the propulsion. So there was no real movement or thrust. It was all just in the background noise. So until someone can circumvent the laws of thermodynamics and these laws and the principles of basic physics, these are our constraining guidelines on whatever we do, whether it's fusion or fission or laser power or whatever form of propulsion we want to use. And will someday someone discover new laws of motion and things that we can use to get around in the solar system? I'm optimistic and hopeful, but when you talk to physicists, they're not as optimistic or hopeful that will happen.
Well, again,
so if we're going to
look at this, honestly,
if we're going to fly around in space, we're going to fly around with our laws of physics, most likely.
Yeah, but look at the law of physics. You know, if you go back to the Wright brothers, to going into, you know, all the what we have created since then, you know, it throws everything out what scientists said was possible. You know, that's maybe we don't know what the future is going to bring. But again, I don't know if humans are even ready to go out to space, let alone. I got to ask you a question. Now, I just watched last night. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie. It's called Farmer Astronaut or Astronaut Farmer, where he built.
I don't think I am.
He built his own.
Is this the one where he
builds his own rocket and launches himself in space
from his farm, right?
Right from his farm.
I don't know if that's the one I saw. Does it crash back down to Earth or something? Or maybe I saw something that was sort of a comedy many years ago that was along the same lines.
Well, the first time it went up, and it instead of going up, it went sideways, and then it crashed. The second time he went up and it came down. But here's the thing: if I decided I wanted to build my own spacecraft, my own rocket, and launch myself in space, in this movie, you know, the FAA, the government, the FBI, every organization put the brakes on it when they realized the guy was serious. If I wanted to create and go to space, for example, and create my own craft, what would happen?
You might be able to do it, but you'd have to go through the regulatory and permitting process with government agencies, and you'd have to demonstrate some kind of launch safety from wherever you're going to launch, and that would be difficult. So you'd probably have to try to find a way to launch from an existing rocket launching range, and I don't know if you could get permitted. I know people have tried to build homemade rockets to do different things. I know the hobby rocket and amateur rocket industry is huge, and there's a lot of people and universities with rocket clubs building rockets, but these are not for humans, but they go to like Black Rock in the desert and other, you know, rocket certified launching sites for amateur rockets. If you wanted to launch it just on your farm, you had a big farm in Oklahoma, I don't think you'd get permission. I have a listener to my show who's a farmer in Oklahoma, and he is building a self-made airplane. He's an incredible engineer, and he has been stymied and stuck with the regulatory and the bureaucratic approval for, I guess, maybe close to 9 months so far. And it's not just that he doesn't know what more they want. They don't even answer him all the time. So lots of time goes by where he doesn't even hear from anybody. And he can't fly it off the ground to even test it until he has the demo permits. All he can do is taxi it. So, and this is an airplane.
And he can't.
He bought a kit.
He can't fly it as an experimental.
No, he needs to have an experimental license for it, and he wants to fly it on his farm. He has a big farm in Oklahoma. It'd be a dirt takeoff path, and he can't do that, and he wanted to fly it out to Las Vegas and land in the desert and then come visit me. I mean, I told him I was trying to find life insurance for him, but no one would furnish it. But this is for a damn airplane, and it's a kit. But he modified the kit because he is really a brilliant engineer. So he's made some changes in the kit, but the engine and the propulsion and stuff and the electronics are pretty much the same as the kit. And think of what it would be if he was trying to build a rocket and launch it on his farm to go to space from Oklahoma. I mean, he probably couldn't get to base 1 on it.
Well, the farmer couldn't either, and he had to do it off the, he just did it. But here's the other point. In the movie, they sit there and they finally gave him permission to test fire it. But it was somewhere out on the island in the Pacific. Like, you're going to have this big rocket that you build in your farm, right? And somehow you're going to have the money now to take it to the Pacific island on the Pacific and, create a launch pad for it there and set it all up. They did it purposely for he couldn't do it. And that's what would happen if I or you wanted to build our own rocket and we wanted to go out in space and create a McDonald's out there.
Well, you couldn't create the McDonald's, but
I get a franchise somehow.
First of all, you would need permits for everything. Not only do you need a launch permit, you need a re-entry permit to come back to Earth.
I didn't even know that.
The FAA will grant a launch permit for the rocket, but now that so many of these flights are coming back, and like Musk brings back the boosters, they return and get reused, all of that has launch permits behind it.
Wow.
So it's a very regulatory oriented industry, and now there is so much traffic going into space. Last year we had the largest number of rockets ever launched to space in the history of mankind, and so and SpaceX led the pack. I forget the exact total number of it was. This include military and civilian. But now there is a serious issue around the space station, and if these private space stations get going, this will also be an issue. It's called space traffic management. And so now they're looking for the FAA and for space agencies in other countries to come up with a way to sort of plan and be traffic cops in space, because if you all want to go dock at your space station, you can't all go at the same time, and you have to, here we go again, obey the laws of physics to get to the docking port and to get out of the docking port. So space traffic management has become a huge issue now that commercial space is blossoming, and it's an issue in the private sector along with the government sector, and it's global.
Interesting. I wonder how much these permits cost from the government, too. I bet you they put a huge amount of money on them.
Well, I don't recall the amount that Musk was spending to get permitted to fly the test flights of Starship in Boca Chica. But remember, he had to go through an environmental permit. He had to go through all sorts of things. It took a long, long time for him to do it. And then the public got to raise questions, and then he had to answer the public's questions and go through all of that. And finally, he got his approval not too long ago, but he probably spent millions of dollars going through the approval to a flight test Starship. Now, that's probably an exception because it's so huge, and it's got 33 engines that are going to fire simultaneously. So the acoustic signature is like bombs going off with impact and compression, for miles around, and all sorts of things. And he's had to change his sound dampening methodology, and that's an exception because it's such a huge rocket. But it's not an easy thing to go through this regulatory environment. And if you talk to amateurs who go out to Black Rock or in other areas, and they're launching amateur rockets, and what they have to go through with their amateur organization to be able to launch, and the rules that they have to obey as amateurs, that they're strictly enforced. by the organization, or they can have the FAA ground them and not allow them to have anybody launch rockets. So there is a bureaucratic side to all of this and a regulatory side, and it's a sport or a hobby that does take some funding to be able to navigate. Plus, you need insurance if the rocket does any damage to third-party participants or entries or people on the ground or third-party buildings or anything like that within the range of where the rocket might fly or land.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that. Hey, our time is winding down. Now, you have a podcast. How often is it on, David, and how can they find it?
Well, it's a live internet talk radio show called The Space Show, a very complex name there. We broadcast Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, Friday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, and Sunday at noon Pacific. And the shows are either 60 minutes or 90 minutes in length. They're all live interviews with people doing different things in the space or the science community. And we're coming up on 4,000 shows.
Oh, wow.
We might hit 4,000 in March. I'm not sure. And everything is archived at thespaceshow.com, and they're archived as MP3s. But then we're also converting them into podcasts. So they're on various podcast servers like iHeart and TuneIn and iTunes and, almost all of the usual ones. Spotify carries the Space Show. So you just put in the THE Space Show and you can find the podcast, or go to thespaceshow.com, or you can email me at drspace, DRSPACE, at thespaceshow.com.
Well, great. I really enjoyed having you on. You are a very interesting...
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I guess me and you won't be going to Mars ourselves, but...
Well, I don't know. Maybe they'll invent life extension. There's a lot of people working on life extension. So,
well, I want to be regenerated.
Scientific effort.
I want to be 30 years old.
You want to what?
I want to be 30 again.
You want to be 30?
Yeah. Well, again,
I don't blame you.
Well, a scientist in the science journal I was reading said if we could stop the Earth and reverse its rotation, we could go back in time.
Yeah, well, fat chance of that happening.
I know.
Time travel is one of my favorite topics. We didn't talk about it, but I do shows on time travel, and I have talked to physicists at Lawrence Livermore Lab and other places. So it's one thing to possibly do. They all say you can go forward in time right now. You can go to Denver, Colorado, and go on top of a mountain, and you'd be going forward in time. Going backward in time, they don't think is possible, although occasionally some well-known physicists will say, yes, I think it is possible. But I want real time travel like you see on some of the TV shows.
Well, you know what, David? We're going to have to get you on, and I'll tell JC to get a hold of you in the next day or two, for we can talk about time travel, because that is something since I was a kid. Remember Time Tunnel? The TV show?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
and,
I was intrigued at time.
I loved all of that stuff. And,
yeah. I want to go back in time.
I go to sleep at night. I put myself to sleep at night by figuring out what are the 10 things I want to go witness when I go back in time. Now, I know I can't interact, but I just want to see them in reality. What are the 10 things that I want to see? And I play that game all the time with myself.
Well, it's a good way to fall asleep. Or what you can do, David, is tune into my show. Guaranteed, it's better than any sleeping pill medication you can buy. Guaranteed to put you to sleep within 3 minutes.
Well, I may try that tonight. That's a good idea. So, but I'm addicted to time travel. I really love the topic. I wish it were here. I wish it were possible. I'm sick of physicists telling me no. And, I also have a thing where I think there might be a way to talk to entities beyond death. And I know there are people working on that scientifically as well. Whether anything like that will ever happen in my lifetime, I don't know, because I'll be 77 in June. But those are two, if you had a bucket list, those are two things that I'd like to be able to deal with.
Okay, well, our time is up. David, again, everybody check out his show, and I'll tell you what, we're going to get you back on. We're going to talk about all time travel.
Anytime, it's been fun.
Okay, my friend, you take care.
I'm game.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, my friend.
Good night.
Good night. Well, JC, tomorrow's show is going to be really good. We're going to be talking about, well, the CIA and what things this spy did with the CIA. So it's going to be really a great show. Make sure you tell your friends. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do give us a thumbs up. Go to our website and check it out at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Guy Ticker wants to know how you like our strange news that we're putting on everywhere. You can give us feedback at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com, or just go to our website and hit that little box there and send me a fast blast. Well, till tomorrow, everybody have a good one. We'll catch you on the other side.